The sweat dripped off my knuckles as I pounded the heavy bag in my garage, each punch echoing the sound of my life falling apart. 3 months unemployed, thanks to that backstabbing piece of garbage, Ethan Morrison, who fired me from the company I helped build. But that wasn't even the worst part. Dad, you're pathetic. My 17-year-old daughter Megan burst through the garage door, her face twisted with teenage disgust. Mom's done pretending to love you. She needs a real man. Ethan's way better than you, and he actually listens to her. I stopped mid-punch, my fist still pressed against the worn leather. A real man? Ethan's allergic to effort. I've seen him run from a salad. What did you just say? I turned around slowly, unwrapping my hands. You heard me, Mark. She crossed her arms, looking exactly like her mother, when she's about to deliver a killing blow. Mom deserves better than some washed-up loser who can't even keep a job. The garage fell silent except for the chain, holding the heavy bag creaking back and forth. 17 years of bedtime stories, soccer games, and father-daughter dances, and this is what I get. Get out, I said quietly. Whatever. Mom's making dinner for someone who matters tonight anyway. She spun on her heel and slammed the door behind her. I stared at the door for a long moment, then looked around my makeshift gym. Battered equipment I'd bought secondhand, old boxing posters peeling off the walls, the smell of motor oil and disappointment. This used to be where I kept my Mustang, the one I had to sell after Ethan canned me. Walking into the house felt like entering enemy territory. Leah was in the kitchen, her blonde hair perfectly styled, even though she'd supposedly been home all day. She wore that blue dress I bought her for our anniversary last year, the one that cost me a week's salary back when I had one. Smells good, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. She didn't look up from the stove. It's just pasta. Megan said you were cooking for someone special. Now she looked at me, those green eyes that used to light up when I walked in the room, now cold as winter. I meant special as in not burned. Don't read into everything, Mark. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She lunged for it like it was a lifeline, turning away from me to read the message. I caught the smile that flickered across her face, the first genuine expression I'd seen from her in months. Who's texting? Work stuff. She slipped the phone into her purse. You wouldn't understand. Right. Work stuff. At the law firm where she'd started 6 months ago. The same firm where Ethan Morrison sits on the board of directors. Small world, right? I sat at the kitchen table, watching my wife of 18 years move around the kitchen like I wasn't there. She'd lost weight recently, started wearing makeup again, bought new clothes, all the classic signs I'd been too stupid or too trusting to see. I'm going for a walk, I announced. Fine. She didn't even turn around. I grabbed my jacket and headed out into the October evening. Our neighborhood used to feel like home, modest two-story houses with small yards, the kind of place where people knew their neighbors and kids played in the streets. Now it felt like a prison where everyone was watching me fail in real time. Mrs. Patterson from next door was getting her mail. She gave me that look, the one that said she knew something I didn't. Or maybe she knew something I was finally starting to figure out. I walked aimlessly for about 20 minutes, my mind churning. When I circled back toward home, I saw Leah's car backing out of our driveway. At 8:30 on a Tuesday night, something cold settled in my stomach. I jogged back to the house and grabbed my keys. Following your wife isn't something you plan to do. It's something that happens when 17 years of marriage collide with the growing certainty that everything you thought you knew was a lie. I stayed 3 cars back, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles went white. She drove downtown to the Marriott, the nice one with the glass lobby and valet parking. I parked across the street and watched her walk in, checking her reflection in the revolving door. 10 minutes later, Ethan Morrison strolled up to the valet stand. 6'2", silver hair, $1,000 suit, and that smug expression he wore when he told me my services were no longer required. He handed over keys to a cherry red Mustang convertible. My Mustang. The one I'd lovingly restored over 3 years. The one I had to sell to him for half its value because I needed the money after he fired me. I sat in my crappy rental car, watching my wife's lover drive my dream car to their romantic evening, and something inside me broke. Not broke like shattered, broke like a dam bursting, releasing something dark and patient that had been building pressure for months. I walked across the street to where my Mustang sat gleaming under the hotel lights. The valet was inside, probably getting his tip from Ethan. I pulled out my keys, still had a spare to the Mustang, and opened the trunk. Inside was a for sale sign, left over from when I was trying to sell my motorcycle. I wrote cheap cheater under it in black marker and taped it to the windshield. Then, I took my house key and dragged it along the passenger side, spelling out liar in foot-high letters. For the finale, I crouched down and used the same key to let the air out of the rear tire. Not slashing. That would be vandalism. Just loosening the valve stem. Perfectly legal. The security camera on the hotel's facade blinked red as I walked away. I looked right at it and smiled. When I got home, Leah's best friend Marina was sitting at my kitchen table, drinking my coffee and looking way too comfortable. Marina Walsh now after her divorce, was a partner at Leah's law firm. Tall, brunette, and sharp as a knife, with the kind of smile that made you check your wallet afterward. "Mark!" She stood up like she was surprised to see me in my own house. "You look tired? Hard day?" "I have a feeling it's about to get easier." She exchanged a look with Megan, who was suddenly very interested in her phone. "Well, I should go. Tell Leah I stopped by." After she left, I poured myself a beer and sat in my recliner. The house felt different now, like I was seeing it clearly for the first time in months. The new throw pillows Leah bought, the way she'd rearranged the living room. Even the smell was different, like she was trying to erase me piece by piece. My phone rang at 10:30. "Leah, Mark. There's been an incident with my car. I'm getting a ride home with a colleague." "What kind of incident?" "Someone vandalized it in the hotel parking lot. Probably just random teenagers." "That's terrible, honey." "What hotel?" A pause. "I was at a work dinner at the Marriott." "I hope they catch whoever did it." "Yeah, me too." She came home an hour later, her makeup slightly smudged, her hair not quite as perfect as when she left. She went straight upstairs without saying goodnight. I sat in the dark living room, finishing my beer and planning my next move, because this was just the beginning. The job interview at Morrison Industries was supposed to be a formality. After all, I'd basically built their logistics department from scratch over 8 years. But Ethan Morrison sat behind his mahogany desk like a king on his throne, barely looking at my resume. "Mark, I'll be honest with you. The board has concerns about your recent performance." "Recent performance?" "I'd increased efficiency by 30% and saved the company $2 million the previous year." "What concerns specifically?" He leaned back in his leather chair, the same chair I'd helped him pick out when he first got promoted to CEO. "Reliability, focus. Several people have mentioned you seem distracted lately." "Several people." I knew exactly who he meant. "Ethan, we've known each other for 8 years. If there's a problem, just tell me what it is." "The problem, Mark, is that we need someone we can count on. Someone who won't let personal issues affect their work." He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city like he owned it. "I'm sorry, but we're going to have to let you go." That was 3 months ago. 3 months of rejection letters, networking events where people avoided eye contact, and the slow realization that Ethan had poisoned every well in town. Now I was sitting in Vic's auto body shop, watching my old friend work on a transmission while I nursed a cup of coffee that could strip paint. "You look like hell, Mark." Victor Santos had been my best friend since high school. We'd played football together, double dated, been each other's best man. He was also the only person in town who didn't seem to think I was radioactive. "Feel worse than I look." "Still no luck on the job front?" I shook my head. "It's like someone's been spreading stories about me. Everywhere I interview, they already seem to have made up their minds." Vic wiped his hands on a rag and gave me a look. "You know who's doing it." "I can't prove anything." "Sometimes you don't need proof. Sometimes you just need to fight back." "With what?" "He's got money, connections, my wife." "He's got your wife." Vic's wrench stopped moving. I'd been keeping that particular humiliation to myself, but the words just spilled out. The hotel, the car, Leah's lies, even Megan's betrayal. By the time I finished, Vic was sitting on a milk crate staring at me. "Jesus, Mark. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because saying it out loud makes it real." "It's already real. Question is, What are you going to do about it? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Text from Leah. Having dinner with Marina tonight. Don't wait up. I showed Vic the message. He read it and shook his head. You want some advice? Do I have a choice? You're playing defense while they're running up the score. Time to change the game. That evening, I decided to test a theory. I drove to Marina's apartment complex and parked where I could see the entrance. At 7:15, Leah's car pulled up. But instead of Marina coming down, Ethan Morrison walked out of the building. They kissed right there in the parking lot, not caring who might see. Then all three of them got into Ethan's BMW, the one he bought with his CEO bonus, and drove off together. I followed them to Chez Laurent, the most expensive restaurant in town. Through the window, I watched them laugh and toast with champagne that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Marina sat between them like some kind of broker, touching both their arms, whispering in their ears. My phone buzzed. Another text from Leah. Marina's going through a rough patch, trying to cheer her up. Home late. I took a screenshot and added it to the folder I'd started keeping on my phone. Evidence, documentation, the foundation of whatever came next. The next morning, I was making coffee when Megan came downstairs, dressed like she was going to a nightclub instead of school. Where do you think you're going in that outfit? She rolled her eyes. It's called fashion, Dad. You wouldn't understand. Try me. Mom said I could wear whatever I want. She said you don't get a vote anymore. I'm still your father. Are you? Because fathers are supposed to provide for their families. Fathers are supposed to be successful. Fathers are supposed to what, Megan? She grabbed a granola bar from the counter and headed for the door. Supposed to be men their wives actually want to be married to. The door slammed behind her, leaving me alone with the coffee makers gurgling and the sound of my world continuing to collapse. I was still standing there when Leah came downstairs in a new dress I'd never seen before. Black, expensive looking, the kind of thing she used to say we couldn't afford. Nice dress. Thanks. She didn't meet my eyes as she poured coffee into a travel mug. I'm showing a property this morning. Then I have court this afternoon. What property? The Morrison estate. It's finally going on the market. Of course it was. Ethan's family had owned that mansion for 3 generations. But his divorce was apparently getting expensive. Not that Leah had mentioned he was getting divorced. Didn't know Ethan was selling? She froze for just a second, her hand tightening on the mug. It's not really Ethan's decision. It's tied up in the estate planning. Another lie, smooth as silk. She was getting good at this. Will I see you tonight? Probably late. Marina and I are working on a big case. The Morrison case? Among others. She kissed my cheek. A cold, perfunctory peck that felt like a business transaction. Try to do something productive today, okay? After she left, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. Time to do something productive. I started with public records, property transfers, business licenses, court filings, all the boring paperwork that tells the real story of people's lives. What I found was interesting. Marina Walsh had filed for bankruptcy 6 months ago. Her divorce had wiped her out, and she'd been living on credit cards and borrowed time. But suddenly, last month, she'd made a large payment to the IRS and caught up on her mortgage. Where does a broke divorce attorney get that kind of money? I dug deeper. Ethan Morrison's divorce filing was public record too. His wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, was seeking half of everything, including his stake in Morrison Industries. But there was something else buried in the paperwork. A consulting agreement between Morrison Industries and Walsh Legal Services, dated 2 months ago. A very generous consulting agreement. My phone rang. Unknown number. Mark, this is Jennifer Morrison, Ethan's wife. Soon to be ex-wife. Jennifer, how did you get this number? I got your number from your old business cards. I kept one from when you helped us with the logistics for our anniversary party. Remember? I remembered. 3 years ago, back when Ethan and I were still friends, before I knew what kind of man he really was. What can I do for you? I was wondering if we could meet. There are some things about my husband you should know. Such as the fact that he's not just cheating on me. He's been planning this divorce for over a year, moving assets, hiding money, and your wife is helping him do it. The coffee in my stomach turned to acid. How do you know about my wife? Because I hired a private investigator 6 months ago. I have photos, Mark, receipts, hotel records, and a lot more. Why are you telling me this? Because Ethan destroyed your career to keep you quiet about some irregularities you'd noticed in the company books. Because he's using your wife to help him cheat me out of half my assets. And because I think we can help each other. I'm listening. Meet me at the Riverside Cafe at 2 o'clock. Come alone and bring an appetite for revenge. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my mind racing. Everything was connected. My firing, Leah's affair, Marina's sudden financial recovery. They weren't just betraying their spouses, they were running some kind of elaborate con. And I was about to find out exactly how deep it went. Jennifer Morrison looked like she'd been through hell. The woman I remembered from company parties, polished, confident, always perfectly put together, sat across from me at the Riverside Cafe looking like she hadn't slept in weeks. Her hands shook slightly as she slid a manila envelope across the table. Open it. Inside were photographs, lots of them. Ethan and Leah at restaurants, hotels, what looked like a weekend getaway at some lakeside resort. But these weren't just affair photos, they were business meetings. In several shots, Marina was with them and they were looking at documents, signing papers. When were these taken? Over the past 4 months, my investigator has been very thorough. Jennifer pulled out a legal pad covered in notes. Your wife isn't just sleeping with my husband, Mark. She's helping him hide assets in preparation for our divorce. What kind of assets? Real estate, mostly. Properties bought through shell companies, then transferred to trusts that I can't touch in the divorce settlement. Marina set up the legal framework, Leah handles the real estate transactions, and Ethan provides the money. I studied the photos more carefully. In one, Leah was handing Ethan keys in front of a house I didn't recognize. In another, all three of them were standing outside what looked like a commercial building, pointing at blueprints. How much money are we talking about? Conservative estimate, $3 million. Money that should be part of our marital assets. $3 million. While I was scrounging for grocery money and selling my possessions to pay the mortgage. There's more. Jennifer pulled out another set of documents. The consulting contract between Morrison Industries and Marina's firm? It's a sham. She's billing for work that doesn't exist, and Ethan is approving payments that go straight into an account Leah helped set up. That's fraud. It's smart fraud, unfortunately. Everything looks legitimate on paper, but I know my husband and I know when he's lying. She leaned forward, her eyes hard. The question is, what are we going to do about it? We? You think this ends with them stealing my money? Ethan fired you because you were getting too close to discovering their little operation. And once the divorce is final, what do you think happens to Leah? You think she rides off into the sunset with him? I hadn't thought about that, but Jennifer was right. Ethan wasn't the type to leave his comfortable life for a middle-aged real estate agent, no matter how good she was in bed. What are you proposing? Jennifer smiled for the first time since I'd sat down. I'm proposing we give them exactly what they deserve. We talked for 2 hours, laying out a plan that was elegant in its simplicity. Jennifer had resources, money, connections, and a very expensive legal team. I had something equally valuable, insider knowledge of how Ethan operated and access to his personal life through Leah. The first step was gathering more evidence. Jennifer's investigator was good, but I could get closer to the action. The second step was timing. We needed to wait for the right moment to strike, when maximum damage could be inflicted. There's a charity gala next month, Jennifer said as we prepared to leave. The Children's Hospital fundraiser. Ethan's company is the primary sponsor, and he'll be giving a speech about corporate responsibility. Ironic. Very. It would be a shame if some uncomfortable truths came to light during such a public event. I drove home with my mind buzzing with possibilities. For the first time in months, I felt like I had some control over my situation. But that feeling evaporated the moment I walked into my house. Leah was in the living room with Marina, both of them looking up guiltily when I entered. They'd been whispering, and now the room was thick with unspoken tension. Mark, Leah's voice was too bright, too cheerful. You're home early. Am I? Marina and I were just going over some case files. She gestured at the coffee table, which was covered with legal documents. Boring stuff. I glanced at the papers. Property deeds, transfer documents, incorporation filings. Not boring at all, actually. Quite interesting. Don't let me interrupt. I headed for the stairs, but Marina's voice stopped me. Mark, can I ask you something? I turned back. Marina was studying me with those sharp lawyer eyes like she was trying to read my mind. Sure. Have you been feeling okay lately? You seem different. Different how? More alert, more focused. Leah was just saying how you seem to have more energy these days. Leah was watching me carefully, waiting for my answer. I realized this wasn't a casual question. They were fishing for something. I've been working out more, trying to stay positive despite everything. That's good, Marina said. It's important to stay busy. Keep your mind occupied with healthy activities instead of dwelling on things. The warning was subtle but clear. Don't think too hard about what's happening around you. I'll keep that in mind. I went upstairs and closed the bedroom door, then immediately opened it a crack so I could hear their conversation resume. Think he knows? Marina was saying. He's not that smart, Leah replied. He's been out of work for months. His confidence is shot. He's not thinking clearly about anything. Still, we should be careful. Men like him can be unpredictable when they're desperate. Mark's not dangerous. He's just sad. Just sad. That's what my wife of 18 years thought of me. I closed the door and sat on the bed, looking around the room we'd shared for so long. Her side of the closet was full of new clothes. Her nightstand had a new phone charger, the expensive wireless kind. Even her jewelry box had new additions. All paid for with stolen money, apparently. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. Ethan's taking a business trip next week. 3 days in Chicago. Might be a good time to look around his office. I typed back, how would I get access? Leave that to me. That evening, Leah announced she was going to a work dinner again. This time, I didn't follow her. Instead, I called Vic. You busy tonight? Just closing up the shop, why? Feel like having a beer and talking about old times? Sure, but you're buying. We met at Murphy's Tavern, a dive bar that had been our hangout since high school. The kind of place where the beer was cheap, the music was loud, and nobody asked questions about why you looked like you wanted to hit something. So, what's the real story? Vic asked after we'd ordered our second round. I told him everything. The photos, the financial fraud, Jennifer's plan for revenge. By the time I finished, Vic was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Jesus, Mark. This is some serious stuff. I know. You sure you want to go down this road? Because once you start, there's no going back. There's already no going back. They made sure of that when they destroyed my career and my marriage. Vic nodded slowly. Okay, what do you need? I need someone I can trust. Someone who's not afraid to get his hands dirty. You got him. We clinked glasses, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Dark, vengeful hope, but hope nonetheless. When I got home, Leah's car wasn't in the driveway. I checked the time, almost midnight. Her work dinners were getting longer. I went to my laptop and started researching the properties and Jennifer's photos, cross-referencing addresses with public records, looking up ownership histories, mapping out the web of shell companies and dummy corporations. What I found was impressive in its complexity. Ethan hadn't just been hiding assets, he'd been building a completely separate financial empire, one that existed entirely outside his marriage. And Leah wasn't just his mistress, she was his business partner. The front door opened at 12:30. I quickly closed the laptop and pretended to be watching TV. You're up late, Leah said, kicking off her heels. Couldn't sleep. She sat down next to me on the couch, closer than she'd been in months. Mark, I've been thinking. Maybe we should talk. About what? About us. About where we go from here. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I'd fallen in love with in college. The one who'd walked down the aisle in a dress we couldn't afford. Who'd held my hand in the delivery room when Megan was born. When had she become a stranger? What did you have in mind? I think we both know this isn't working anymore. Maybe it's time to be honest about that. Honest? That's an interesting word choice. She flinched slightly. I'm just saying that maybe we'd both be happier if we stopped pretending everything was fine. Are you asking for a divorce, Leah? I'm asking if you think we should consider it. I pretended to think about it, watching her face carefully. She was trying to look sad, but I could see the anticipation in her eyes. She wanted me to say yes, needed me to say yes. I don't know, I said finally. It's a big decision. Maybe we should try counseling first. The disappointment flickered across her face so quickly I almost missed it. Of course, she said, and that's a good idea. I'll look into it tomorrow. Great. She stood up, smoothing down her dress. I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed. She kissed the top of my head, another cold, perfunctory gesture, and headed upstairs. I waited until I heard the bedroom door close, then opened my laptop again. Time to do some more research, because if Leah wanted to play games, I was going to make sure I knew all the rules. And more importantly, I was going to make sure I won. The key to Ethan's office came from an unexpected source, his cleaning lady. Jennifer had tracked down Rosa Martinez, who'd been cleaning Morrison Industries for 5 years until Ethan suddenly fired her last month. Rosa was more than happy to help when Jennifer explained the situation and offered her $1,000 for one night's work. He fires me because I see him with the blonde woman in his office after hours, Rosa explained as she led me through the building's service entrance. Says I'm stealing, but I never steal nothing. He just wants me gone because I know his secrets. It was 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night, and the Morrison Industries building was empty except for security. But Rosa knew their routines, knew which cameras had blind spots, knew exactly how to get me to Ethan's executive suite without being detected. You have 1 hour, she whispered as she unlocked the office door. Security does rounds at 11:30. Ethan's office was exactly what you'd expect from a man who thought he was king of the world. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a desk the size of a small car, and enough awards and photographs to stock a museum. But I wasn't there for the decor. I went straight to his computer. Jennifer had given me a flash drive loaded with software that would copy his hard drive in 30 minutes. While that was running, I searched his desk. The bottom drawer was locked, but I'd come prepared. Vic had taught me a few things about locks over the years. Inside, I found a folder labeled Personal that contained documents I definitely wasn't supposed to see. Bank statements showing regular transfers to offshore accounts, property deeds for houses in 3 different states, and most interesting of all, a prenuptial agreement that had been modified 6 times in the past year, each modification designed to reduce Jennifer's settlement in case of divorce. But the real treasure was in his filing cabinet, a folder labeled LW Consulting that contained contracts, invoices, and payment authorizations for work that clearly didn't exist. Leah Walsh, she'd been using her maiden name for the consulting business, had billed Morrison Industries for over $400,000 in real estate advisory services over the past 6 months. I photographed everything, then moved to his personal safe. The combination was taped to the bottom of his desk drawer. Amateurs always think they're smarter than they are. Inside were more documents, jewelry, and a small black notebook filled with handwritten notes. The notebook was a goldmine. Ethan had documented everything: which properties to buy, how to structure the shell companies, even personal notes about his relationship with Leah. One entry from last month made my blood boil. L is getting impatient about M. Says she can't keep pretending much longer. Told her to wait until after the divorce is final. Need to keep M stable until then. Can't have him digging around or causing problems. Marina thinks we should speed up the timeline, but too risky. M was me. They were discussing me like I was a problem to be managed. Another entry from 2 weeks ago. M seems suspicious lately. L says he's asking more questions, staying up late on his computer. May need to take more direct action to keep him distracted. Marina has some ideas. Direct action. I wondered what that meant. The computer finished copying, and I packed everything up. As I was preparing to leave, I noticed something I'd missed before: a framed photo on Ethan's credenza, showing him, Leah, and Marina at what looked like a resort. They were all in swimwear, drinks in hand, looking like they didn't have a care in the world. The photo was dated 3 weeks ago, the same week Leah told me she was visiting her sick aunt in Portland. I pocketed the photo and headed for the door. Rosa was waiting in the hallway, checking her watch nervously. Find what you needed? More than I needed. We made it out of the building without incident. I thanked Rosa and gave her an extra $500. Jennifer could afford it, and Rosa deserved it for the risk she'd taken. I drove home with my mind racing, processing everything I'd discovered. The scope of their operation was bigger than I'd imagined, and the casual way they discussed manipulating me was infuriating. But now I had ammunition. The house was dark when I got home. Leah's car was in the driveway, which meant she was actually home for once. I crept upstairs and found her asleep in our bed, her phone charging on the nightstand. I carefully picked up her phone and carried it to the bathroom, closing the door before turning on the light. Her passcode was Megan's birthday. Some things never change. Her text messages were a revelation. Messages with Marina about keeping Mark calm and managing the situation until everything is finalized. Messages with Ethan about property transfers and our future together. And most damaging of all, a group chat between the three of them called Project Freedom, where they discussed their plans in detail. I screenshotted everything, then returned her phone to the nightstand. Leah stirred as I got into bed, but didn't wake up. I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathe, wondering how long she'd been planning to destroy our marriage. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up. A note on the kitchen counter said she had an early showing and wouldn't be home until late. Megan had already left for school, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my evidence. I called Jennifer. How did it go? Better than expected. We need to meet. Same place, 1 hour. Jennifer was already waiting when I arrived at the Riverside Cafe, and her expression brightened when she saw the folder I was carrying. Please tell me that's what I think it is. I spread the documents across the table between us. Bank records, contracts, property deeds, and printed screenshots of text messages. Jennifer's eyes widened as she took it all in. My God, Mark. This is enough to destroy all of them. The question is how we use it. Carefully, and at exactly the right moment. She pulled out her phone and showed me a calendar entry. The charity gala is next Friday. Ethan will be giving his speech about corporate responsibility at 8 o'clock. Half the city's elite will be there, including reporters from 3 different news outlets. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it would be a shame if some of these documents accidentally found their way to those reporters right before Ethan takes the stage. We spent the next hour planning every detail. Jennifer would handle